This is Territory Tales, the stories behind the amazing and fascinating people and places in Oregon's Mount Hood Territory. I'm your host, Jared Lyman. Joining me as always is Molly Johnson, who is beyond excited, over the moon excited, with today's guest, because this is a topic that is near and dear to your heart, yes, and something that is deeply part of your life every year.
Every year I go to this event, and so I'm really excited to have you. This is Zale Schoenborn.
Yep.
Zale Schoenborn. We've been going over it. Zale Schoenborn. He is the festival founder of Pickathon Music Festival, which happens every year in August at the Pendarvis Farm in Happy Valley, right here in Oregon's Mount Hood Territory.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you coming in. I mean, we're getting close to festival time. You're just a little bit out, so I know it's kind of crunch time. But it is such a cool and unique event that we wanted to talk to you about it, because I think this thing kind of personifies everything that just people know about this region. It's unique. It's different. It's grown a life of its own. And I also should admit it's 21st anniversary, so I can legally drink now.
Yes.
So Pickathon can drink. So
that is the big insight this year.
The biggest question I have is, how did you manage to take something that is, music festivals, they've been around forever, mm-hmm, and still find a way, especially in a market that's known for, being picky, we're cooler than that, and finding a way to make it so unique and stand out and be successful at it? I know that's like a multi-pronged question, so that's the whole half hour you can fill in right there.
Right there, yeah. For us, it had a kind of strong identity when we started about being kind of almost like the better party. Like we kind of said, we started as like a 90-person event way out in some place called Horning's Hideout.
Oh, wow.
And then we eventually ended up in Happy Valley, which we are there today, and we absolutely are in love with the Pendarvis Farm. But just every kind of step of the way, it was always about, wow, wouldn't it be great if, we were a music festival, but we didn't just have one type of music, and we had all these other types. Oh, and wouldn't it be great if we had potluck and had some food with this? And wouldn't it be great? And every step kind of, sometimes we'd snag these communities and they just got more invested. And the approach that we've always taken is kind of, hey, this is we want you to do what you do, but it's the Olympics of what you do. Let's make it this kind of fantasy, like dream version, partly so that they stay interested, right? And that's like an incredibly fun way to be. Talk more about the business model. It's a suspect business model, but it very selfishly knew that what we were kind of cultivating had to be that way. Otherwise, we'd lose that mojo.
Well, and you call it a suspect business model, but I think one of the cool things about that is that it's a business model, but you don't treat it like a business model.
No.
It's everything. You've basically just turned it on its head and made it work.
Yeah, the festival business has a very specific world. Like you grow lots of people, as many people as you can jam in there. You do as few of infrastructure as you can possibly do, and it should be very standard. You should pop up a truck, and it has a stage on it, and all of these things you just wheel in. You have chain link fence around the perimeter. You have expensive, very few beers, probably one beer, and it's very expensive, and that is the model, and you bring in enough acts to kind of entice people to put up with all of that. And so you have this kind of model that works. And we knew that wasn't going to be us. Like from very, very early, I think we were very, the first 5 years of any kind of great event is a bunch of dreamers, and you don't care about anything. You think everyone's gonna work for free, and it's all gonna work out.
That blind optimism, gotta love it.
Exactly.
Yes.
And then you kind of start hitting the wall where everyone's like, I'm kind of tired. This is really hard, and you start like, well, a little bit of money, and you just kind of creep towards like, okay, you really need pros doing all of this stuff. And that's just kind of the choices as you see that trajectory, like kind of dragging you into the real world, I like to call it, is really hard to kind of picture a way to keep what you originally wanted it to be and survive this massive cost increase of paying like professionals like living wages to actually do the things that you need to happen.
Wow. Oh my God.
And that kind of drags you towards, okay, well, we're going to slim everything down and we're going to put more people in there. And we're just going to make it, so people are used to that standard model. And yeah, we just knew right from that beginning that that's where we would have to go. And, right around year 10, we started to think about, geez, how are we going to prevent this from happening, for us?
Well, and that's the thing is like you see so many, the independent types of things, whether it be, music or festivals or TV shows or anything, where they start out with that unique independent feel, and then eventually they become the man.
Yeah.
And that's just how it is. I mean, as they try to maintain
Survive,
sustainability.
Yeah.
You haven't done that. I mean, I think after 21 years, it's safe to say it ain't going to happen. So how did you pull that off?
It's about really keeping true to that. Like, you really dig deep into what relationships you're building. So we were just joking before this podcast that if you to describe Pickathon, it is an experience first kind of event, but it isn't just one thing. Yeah, we don't have any trash, and yes, we don't have any plastic, and we have 6 of the most elaborate kind of sound stages.
They're amazing.
Yeah, built on the planet.
Unreal. They are unreal.
You liken it to Disneyland.
Exactly.
And I mean, that was an amazing analogy because, I mean, you've got all these diverse lands there, including Star Wars land. But each one has its own unique feel.
Yeah.
It is a whole experience.
It's like a fantasy kind of, what mood am I in? I'm going to wander in the woods. I'm going to, I feel like being sweaty. I'm going to go into the barn. Or, whatever your mood is. And those kind of, you bounce around, right, all weekend between these things. And there's art and each of those communities we work really hard with. Like, for example, the Portland State University, a while ago, I guess it's almost 7 years now, we kind of approached their architecture department and said, well, we're thinking about building a new stage, but wouldn't it be great if we got students involved and made this like a project that could actually, they could get get their heads around, and that kind of developed in kind of the marquee design build program of the university.
Oh, wow.
Where they build the tree line stage. And every year they came up with this idea that they challenged themselves to make it a diversion architecture, which I'm pretty sure they coined as a term. And the idea is like, hey, we're going to come up with a material, and then we're going to build this stage, and then after the festival, it's going to go back to its either original use or some other use. And over the years, we've used pallets, concrete tubes, lumber that went into Roosevelt High School, and then the last couple years, we've been using components that have made the Clackamas Veterans Homeless Camp here and the Kenton Women's Village. Both of those homeless, small pod-like structures that they're using kind of to integrate and be designy in the communities came from the tree line stage.
Oh, that's crazy. That's crazy.
And you might know it. You might have seen it, but that community is inherently sustainable because they are in a class. They are doing something that they can't really do in any other kind of design build. They have won several Portland awards, the first time the university has won architecture awards in town.
Wow.
And they were up for a national award, an architecture award. And
hopefully you got to go on stage and accept that with them, because I mean, you're part of it.
I don't care.
You're like,
I
go to
amazing because it starts as a music festival, but it's touched so many lives in so many other ways that you couldn't have envisioned that.
We hope it. So like it's a microcosm of kind of how all these things snap together. And those students are getting amazing national architecture jobs. They're the stars, like people really know them. They won a Living Planet, they were acknowledged at the Living Planet Awards this year too.
Wow.
So it's pretty cool. And you can kind of go down any of those spaces or relationships or food or art and they all have some kind of awesome, really motivated people who are doing what they do, but it's like the Olympics of what they do.
It is. I mean, there are so many special things about it, but I would definitely say for me personally, and I think a lot of other people, like, we look forward to what the stage is going to look like this year. Like, so the stages are incredibly cool. You absolutely have to be there to experience it. Photos are amazing, but you can't do it justice unless you're there.
It's kind of like Christmas morning. What's it going to be? You know, what's going to be under the tree, or in this case, what's going to be made out of the trees. But
Right.
Yes, this year, I won't spoil it, but it's quite a different stage design this year.
I'll come back and tell everyone what I saw.
You touched on one thing that is obviously a huge part of this, is the plastic-free environment that you've created there. And I mean, again, I find myself, this is a trope I use with so many of our innovators that we talk to on the show, but you were doing it before it was cool.
We did it because we could, and we thought, wouldn't it be good, and it actually was pretty easy, and we've been just open sourcing that to any human that will listen, like any organization, and it's taken quite a while. Like the logic we had was, well, if we could get folks to get behind the reusable cups, and you can't really do half. You can't give them a choice. You say, hey, we're either going to get rid of all this plastic, and then we know how many cups to order, and everybody would need to buy one, and you'd get to keep it, and you paid less than what you would have bought it in the store. So. And the response we had on kind of social media, we kind of tested it, was just immediate. It was one of our first really big viral moments, and it just kind of started this whole concept of reuse in a lot of restaurants too in Portland. All of a sudden, you started seeing reusable cups in all across like the landscape, and I don't think you really see disposable cups very often in town anymore. Yeah. And it's partly because it's not a big deal, to like manage that, and the trade-off is, I don't know, back then it was like 250,000 plastic cups. Yeah. For us now it would be like at least 1 million, and just an insane amount of trash that you can try to recycle, but in essence, is going to the landfill. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, and the drawback, in which we've always thought, is people, it feels like a hassle, and in practice, when you kind of put those goals out there and you ask people are they motivated, it ends up being a no-brainer. And the year after that, we followed it up with, well, the next big chunk of trash for us was these biodegradable plates and all of the things that people call biodegradable and the food waste. And we're like, wow, that was like a third of our trash. Wow. Was something like that. And we said, well, I wonder if we can wash plates and, have folks buy a dish token when they arrive. They can wash their plates. And I'd say less than 1% of people do that. Most people come and they buy a token. They bring it to a food vendor. They get their plate with food on it. They go back to the dishwashing station, give their plate to the dishwashing station, get their token. And at the end of the weekend, they give the token back to the dishwashing and take the plate home. Again, it was more cost than what they paid for, and it has a souvenir logo, and they're great. Those 9-inch pasta bowls are like the ultimate, bowl for camping, anything.
Yes.
Have you ever done the math? Because I'm kind of curious if there's a number there of how much trash has been eliminated by these efforts.
2/3 of our trash was eliminated by just those two things.
So I mean, like, in terms, have you ever done poundage weight?
Oh
or anything?
We actually, I'm not gonna be able to recite those, but we do have those, and we're down to kind of like the massive amount of trash is what people leave behind. Yeah. When they buy cheap camping gear and stuff. So this year, our big push is to really kind of get folks to either we'll set up and rent you camping stuff, or like think about what you're buying, because we're just throwing away. That is our last really big source of waste.
Right. So are we talking probably tons here then over the years that have been eliminated?
Oh,
that's
absolutely.
Amazing.
I think there are many. In tens of tons in a given year.
Wow.
So it's
making an impact by not making an impact.
Yeah, and it's just it's cool to see all those people disappear and there's blankets. That's the worst thing you see on the ground, right? That's all you have. And
that's awesome.
It's not that hard, and now it's kind of just part of what we do. It's like we did that back in 2010, 11, and although it's kind of big news, some other festivals are trying to do it. Like I think Glastonbury was trying to go plastic free this year, and we've been trying to give it away. So here's how you do it.
First. We were kind of talking before this. I said, it was like just a small learning curve the very first year you go of, okay, here's where you go to wash it. Here's the token system. Here's the cup. Here's what you do. And honestly, I think it helps you plan ahead better for your festival, knowing you're going to go there, knowing ahead of time they are single use free. They don't do that. So, okay, well, do I want to bring my own things, and what will help me stay there and be able to do it? So I think it actually helps you plan ahead better for these festivals, especially since it's a multi-day overnight thing. And I think people come better prepared, and it sounds like they're still learning. Maybe they need more camping correct equipment, but it'll just be more of a learning curve, and it's getting better and better.
Yeah. I mean, there are just layers of kind of, I like to call it, the biggest benefit for surviving 21 years is the massive failures you get to improve on, right? So
yes.
There were points when we had just kind of chaos, people trying to camp in the woods, and they didn't know where to go, and so the late people would camp on the side of a hill. And we invented this whole thing called the camp host, as a just a weird component of it, which is like a hotel front desk. I think we're the only festival that does this too, where you show up, you look completely overwhelmed. We have a dry erase board with a ton of kind of firefighters actually are the big majority piece of this crew, and they're out in the woods with their walkie-talkies and quadrants and marking percent full, and they're kind of moving in the woods, knowing where people are, where spots are, and as you kind of look like a deer in the headlights, they sit there and they just make you calm down, have a seat, and if you want, there's four gear drop-offs. You don't have to carry your gear up there. Just put it here. It'll show up at this point on the road within a certain amount of time, and they just kind of walk people. There's certain people that know where they're going, and they just get there Thursday and they set up for their people, and then that kind of little thing really sets the tone for somebody's whole weekend.
Absolutely.
And we kind of go on and on with those like little things that kind of adding up into one big thing. We built our own showers. We built those showers like not using a lot of water, so we reinvented kind of festival showers using pull chains, and that's become kind of a marquee for festival showers literally across the country, because you got rid of 85% of your water use, just by having that.
Which is insane.
Yeah.
Well, and I also remember reading something not that long ago that you guys have installed a lot of solar to help power, because obviously, electricity is a big part of a festival because it takes a lot of juice to run the instruments and the amps and everything. And you guys have really approached like kind of a net zero line on that as well. We've
outgrown our capability to do that because of the scale of the stages and the lighting. But where we have been able to really do it is the Galaxy Barn has a permanent installation of solar that we helped install.
Okay.
And that offsets a couple of our venues and all of the vendors. So we're kind of banking electric all year long, making that possible. But wherever we can, we try to use, we try to like have all of our lights are LEDs up on the trails.
That makes a huge difference alone right there.
Yeah. And we can sometimes power with solar. So there was at one point where we had a big chunk of the festival powered, but we've just gotten too big production-wise to kind of claim that mantle. But we do, everything we can do, we do.
Yes. I just can't describe it enough. The epicness, if that's a good word, of walking through with the light installations you have, and just how insane it's gotten, and how it takes you like out of reality almost, because nothing looks quite like that with the different I look forward to the different lighting features you're going to have every year, so it makes total sense that you're doing as much as you can. And then the rest is.
Yeah, I mean, there is the main venue is called Mount Hood. We are in
Mount
Hood.
Mount Hood territory.
It has an epic view of Mount Hood.
Yes.
It's just square right there behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And it is one of the largest tension fabric structures. It's putting up temporary ones. It's putting up, taken down every year in the world.
Yeah, it's just the mechanics of that alone I find mind-boggling, but it works. 20
to 40, highly skilled people working for 3 weeks at just breakneck, efficiency.
Wow, 3 weeks.
3 solid weeks around, schedule all the way up to the festival, and then a week to tear it down. It's something like 250 or 300,000 square feet of fabric. It's 12 miles of rope. It covers like 2 football fields by 2 football fields. It is definitely an engineering marvel that by itself.
And it's gorgeous.
Yeah.
It is really cool looking.
You would call that is irrational in itself. Like literally a festival attempting, in a smaller festival like us, because we do cap our paid audience at 3,500, although the volunteers and the things, kids and everything else add up to almost 8. So there's actually quite a bit more folks than the 3,500. But we've had a really strong mandate to keep a 3,500 to 5,000 paid mandate. We've kept it around 3,500. That which essentially makes the density about 5x lower than it could be. You could shove in our main field. It's bigger than the waterfront. Down at you could put 80,000 people if you put festival rules.
Yeah, if you wanted sardines. Yeah.
Yeah, the normal, but that is the math for most festival yards.
Right.
And we just would never do that because the experience of it, feeling it's like it's your favorite thing you're doing all year, like it's Christmas, like it's. Yeah. And that's a very fragile flower there. It can be killed, and it's not there's not things you can do that. It's all of those things you have to be kind of conscious and honest about. And density is definitely a huge part of what we try to manage and spread people out too during different places. Some stages can't hold that many.
Right.
Like the wood stage can hold about 2,500. So when we have Phil Lesh out there on Friday night for 3 hours, we have to put something very big on the main stage and on the tree line to kind of pull that audience, so it doesn't try to all jam into one spot.
Wow. See, these are logistics, again, that I don't even think about of, it's not just giving somebody the best time to perform, but managing crowds around that. And I mean, there's a whole new strategy there.
So it's just effortless. You don't have to think about it. You're looking for no friction. I mean, I think we're one of the only festivals without barriers between the venues that you get kicked out. It's like the whole festival's like one giant living room.
Yeah.
If you're up, I mean, it's incredibly vulnerable. If somebody wanted to be, we have security and we do things, but one of the things we found is when you treat people, it is a festival for people who don't like festivals. It also works for people who love festivals, but it really works for people who have given up on any hope of liking, festivals because it's just awful for them.
Sometimes there's not so much of a festive feel anymore in the festival.
Yes, when you are young and you can put up with it all, or you have those acts, there's a certain tolerance, but there's that wanes, and keeping it keeping the entire event open to where you can wander around late night all over the place is a typically a festival taboo. Usually you kick them out, you have fences around it, and you just that's off limits. And so you go back to your campground, or you go back and you come back into the grounds. But we have really never really had any kind of major damage or anything stolen. We return, probably thousands of dollars in lost wallets every year. Very expensive cameras, dozens of phones, almost nothing has really happened. Right. There are people who are having a little too much fun and all of those kind of things that we have to manage that happen in populations. But the amount of mischief that you would think could happen really, because you're treating people well, they take a lot of ownership.
Yes.
And it works on that level too. And part of it is being kid friendly.
Yeah.
When you have 1,000 kids under 12,
Yeah.
we probably are the only festival you can bring kids to.
Well, then that was something I wanted to touch on because that is a truly unique element. And, as you mentioned, it's a festival for people who don't like festivals or maybe who have gotten past the traditional festival age because responsibilities and kids and whatnot. But parents can still go and attend. And not only do they, it's not like they're dragging a kid to some unwilling kid to a concert that they don't want to hear this music. The kid's doing something and having a blast over there too. And the parents can know they're in good hands. They can go enjoy the music while the kids are entertained as well.
Yeah, if you go on our website now, we just released the kids schedule. It's like an entire festival.
Yeah.
There's more kids events there than probably most kids festivals. There's more things going on, from trackers to nature programs to very small kids like daycare and yoga and dozens of performers and puppets. And then as it gets a little bit older, it gets into different classes, and then kids start to like the rock music and they start showing up at the fronts of all the stages. So
Right.
there's that whole spectrum from toddlers to teen, preteen and teenagers, and they probably hit 12. They start kind of migrating out, but it's like essential part of running the festival for us is to make it so you can. It's not like oppressive, and the side benefit of having all those parents is that they kind of look out for the festival and the behavior, and the kids are kind of like the best security you can have is having tons of parents of kids that are there.
Well, I was kind of thinking, honestly, even without the festival, it'd be like the coolest summer camp ever.
Oh, yeah.
What you guys have going on, because the kid, I've been there, and then the videos that we have shot there for promotion stuff, the kids are just always having a blast.
Oh yeah, again, you try to make it the favorite thing for them every year, that they get to go to. And my kids are both in school, and like some of their friends, they're less impressed with dad sometimes, my daughter and my son, but they love the festival. Their friends love it.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like, dads, as you get into teenagers, are not that cool all the time, but
No.
We're
awful.
My wife, it's so intimately woven into our friends and family who have kind of really been a big part of making this happen, that it's fun to see them kind of grow up into the music. And for me, like one of the things on our music side that makes Pickathon very different is that we don't really hone in on a genre per se,
Right.
but we kind of really curate music in a sense that is very different. We pick genres and we go to those genres and those music critics, and we open source a huge number, hundreds of smart people to kind of give us the regionally best thing in country or electronic or in psychedelic, rock or rap. And we really kind of go deep into subcultures or jazz, bluegrass, Americana, blues, like all of these things that you would think are disparate and don't really have overlap. Most people listen to a broad set of music, has been my theory, and all of my friends are like that.
Okay, I am so glad that you guys have all the different genres, because like I particularly like country, which I'm so excited that Tyler Childers is going to be there this year. He's amazing.
Yeah, he is somebody that a lot of people do know about, but hasn't really. A lot of folks here don't really know about it, but people that are into that music are like over the moon, right? He is one of those people that we will get in that kind of rocket ship phase that. When we had Sturgill Simpson for 3 times before he ever became even noticed.
Right.
He was in Sunset Valley twice and came as Sturgill, and then immediately kind of all of a sudden from Pickathon kind of took off, and then he was nominated for Album of the Year at the Grammys, right?
Right.
So,
yeah.
That's really fun, and that's one of our kind of things that we were just talking about, is that we pick these artists that are like in those music scenes, that's like who you're most excited to see, but you probably never heard of it.
Yeah.
So if you were a super fan of these worlds, you would kind of know who they were, but you may not know these other worlds. And boy, is that fun to get around with a bunch of people and pick music based on that. You can You can you can drink a lot of beer and have a lot of fun, passionate arguments around,
Man.
music and versus kind of the more traditional style of festival booking, which is Polestar.
Yeah.
Like how many do they draw? And this is the things that are popular, and we're going to put these next to each other because, it draws.
Right.
Well, and that's the thing is because most festivals, they rely on that big name.
Yeah.
That's what's going to draw the people. But here, again, you flip that on its head, and you're bringing in based on the quality of the acts, not the draw potential. Mm-hmm. But it must be working because 21 years, and y'all have to cap the number of tickets sold.
Yep.
So this content-driven plan is doing it for you guys.
Yeah. Yes, which we haven't talked about. We should talk that as our disruptive thing on the festival side. But yeah, that is part of the selfish thing of keeping it real. If we moved away from that music model, which used to be, I'd say it's more of a strength now for us. Mm-hmm. So the first 10 years, getting people used to going to a festival that they've never heard of any of the bands was just the most painful thing, because it took people actually spreading the word, saying, no, actually, this is something you should do. And when they will go, they're like, oh yeah, it's like my favorite music of the year now is all of these bands I never heard of. And it's wonderful for us because we've been able to launch so many careers from nothing to just stardom. And it's one of the things that we have now. We are getting access to some bigger artists, partly because they want to do something fun. They've done these big things. Right. They want to do these other things. So we're kind of getting this opposite thing now, where some artists like Nathaniel Ratliff, who's just way too big for Pickathon on paper, wants to come. So
wow.
We're squeezing and figuring out, or Phil Lash, he could actually play stadiums anywhere he wants. Doesn't need anything to do with us, but purposely he's turning 80 and he's looking at, I want to do stuff that is not normal, and the booking and the industry that really zeroed in on us, because the artists community looks at that experience. We treat them with the same kind of level of love that we do the festival, which is, you would think everyone does that, but it is incredibly unusual. It is a very business-like experience most of the time to come to a festival where you get a trailer with a fruit plate, and a bottle of wine and a concrete
bowl of brown M&Ms.
Exactly. And if you're important, you'll have a trailer all day.
Yeah.
And they're usually construction trailers,
right.
with not a lot of love.
Right.
And it's just very sterile and very businesslike. It doesn't feel like the festival itself doesn't always translate to that experience. And we build these amazingly backstage communal spaces where everyone has to hang out, and no one really bothers anybody, even when they're a star. And they love it.
Yeah.
They become fans of the other music they're seeing. Those are the things that you can really, make happen for them. And we have a scratch organic kitchen that we pull from a lot of the farms in Mount Hood territories. A lot of great farms are part of that, and we cook for that whole 4 weeks. We're making food, and then we make it for the artists, which that kind of blows them away.
Right.
That they're like, oh my goodness, we've never had food like this, and 15 different beers and 6 different wineries and 8 cideries and kombucha. Mount Hood territories and Portland is just rich with things, right?
I feel like that. Well, 2 things. I mean, the community that you talked about and how learning the other kind of music, seriously, because I would go, in the past, I would have gone for a particular artist. And now, my friend who I go with, this huge group, but she's so excited about Nathaniel, and I'm so excited about Tyler. And we get to then hear all these other music. And I got to be honest, I was one of those who was like, I don't know these bands, and I don't think I'm going to like that music. And it just opened my eyes to so much music that I do love. And then I listened to it more throughout the year, and not just at Pickathon. So the fact that you have that community vibe, and I think we all want to go because of the amazing music, but also what you just were talking about, which is the area, our region is just ripe with wine, craft beverages, amazing food, and you use those local resources, and I think that makes it incredidible.
And that's hard. It's part of the weird business model. Usually you take a giant check from Anheuser-Busch or something and you say, we'll just serve Bud Light. And that would just it's as much of a beer festival as it is
Yeah.
a music festival, right? We have, I don't know, we might end up with over 20 breweries this year.
Wow.
And
That's a good selection.
and we don't, they're like $6, right? Like that's a pint. They're not the $15 pints or
Yeah.
$11, Pabst. Is like, it's really, it's incomprehensible for us to like do that at a, and so that's part of the experience. And we also like, we've in this community and nationwide, we ruined the idea of charging for water. There was a really, it's kind of moved past that, but about 3 or 4 years ago, the Music Fest Northwest had a real big hubbub. It was hundreds of degrees and selling water for like $2.50, $3. They thought that was cheap, but
Yeah.
And big festivals used to sell it for like $5.
Oh, yeah.
You can't bring water in, but that's just like we were like, that is insane. To actually something you have to live on and it is insanely hot that you would charge for that. So
Charged by the breath is the next one.
and that was at least $500,000 in revenue that you throw away because people have to drink water. But we just thought that was just insane to do.
I want to go back to a little bit of backstage with all the artists hanging out.
Mm-hmm.
Because some of the stuff that I've had the pleasure of being a part of in my life is watching musicians, not when they're performing for the public, but just for the love of the music. How often does some sort of like, just inopportune like jam session or something happen backstage where all these musicians who would never perform together normally just start playing and just having a good time? That's got to be amazing.
Yeah, it happens all the time.
Wow.
One of the things that is different about Pickathon that somewhat suppresses that is that they don't usually go to festivals to go watch other acts. They heavily come to Pickathon to like immerse themselves in all this other musicians. And this year, Nathaniel has really there was a tragic event. Richard Swift, who has produced Nathaniel's records and Sharon Van Etten's and a whole host of like very famous artists. He passed away. He lived down in Cottage Grove. So they're going to do on Saturday night, there's the Richard Swift X Hex Band is on our lineup. And that'll be Lucius and Richard Swift and Eric Johnson from the Fruit Bats. And we're flying up Jonathan Rado from Foxygen, a bunch of bands. And they're going to collab and put together.
Kind of like a super group kind of thing.
Super group.
Yeah.
And we did that last year with Daniel Norgan. And Phil Cook organized a whole host of people. And I've personally have played with Andrew from Mandolin Orange, if you know that band.
Wow, you got to what? Okay. Side
Yeah,
note: what
yeah.
kind of artist are you?
Yeah, I'm a mandolin player. I would say I've become, more of just something I'm going to get back to. But I was a serious mandolin player for years, pre-kids, and then conned my family, my lovely wife, who's been so supportive. Hey, I'm just going to keep this one little thing. And, it's once a year, and then it's kind of like she wasn't that surprised. It's grown into the all year long thing that we do now. But, I got to play 3 years ago with around at Sun's coming up on Sunday with Andrew, who's the most amazing mandolin player in a great band who's coming back this year called Mandolin Orange.
Okay. I don't think I have, but I'm excited to see
they're
it.
incredible.
Yeah.
I like the pun, so I'm going to have to check them out.
Yes.
So we've talked a lot about the past, but let's look at this coming year.
Mm-hmm.
You've mentioned some of the acts happening, but what are some of the other highlights that people can look forward to this year?
Well, we are always kind of reinventing everything we do. So some of the big things that'll be noticed will be the tree line will be brand new materials, brand new design. We introduced a new space outside of the Galaxy Barn called the Art Yard, the Galaxy Art Yard, which we brought in street artists from Mexico they're very famous and wonderful people that built this incredible murals. And then this year we're taking that to a whole nother level with a whole cast of artists building this kind of Latin American kind of traveling sideshow kind of approach that will have canvas banners that were and installed art pieces, and it'll be very immersive and incredible. We're bringing in some mercado that we're in some different food options, and curation, which we haven't talked about yet, which is our food series we do with chefs and with artists, and we shoot an original content series where they get together, they collaborate, and they get to know each other as friends, and then they create a meal for 100 people, and we'll do 8 of those brunches and happy hours and dinners at the festival this year that involves some, the best chefs and these artists, and that collaboration is incredible.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Because
unreal.
honestly, these chefs, it should be an art considered an art in its own right, because what they do is just as creative and just as inspirational.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we've kind of built this idea that gets to be the Olympics of what they do. They get to do
Right.
all of these things in their life, but you never really get to do this.
Yeah.
And that fact that we really constrain it for that under 100 people really makes it really intimate.
Right.
And it's just something that this year I'm actually going from here out to the farm, and we're meeting with Skylab architects who've built a lot of the more significant structures in the area, and they are taking their entire company retreat and have built their entire company retreat around designing different curations.
Oh, wow.
And that is a design build for them. So we've kind of built this new relationship where we're taking some of the best architects now that are on the professional side and creating a new way to kind of plug them in.
Whoa.
It'll be incredible. We don't quite know. Can't report what it is, but all I know is that that it'll be incredible.
Yeah. I can't wait.
There's so much collaboration that happens. And it shows just the value that people have in this event, the love that they have for it, because it's not done out of business, but it's done because of a passion for what you've created.
And we like to say sustainable. So we like not to ask folks to work, beyond what they're comfortable. So we find those professional relationships. Some of them are truly market rate professional relationships, like on the production crew and our operations and the rentals we do. Those are just vendors in the area. And then there are these relationships that are way more custom, and they benefit professionally or they organizationally, and we try to make those work. And how do they work? It's kind of, whether it's the university, or we build the wood stage with a community called City Repair.
Okay.
There's just, each of these has we built this new area called the Refuge, which is our kind of wellness center with massage, and we have 20 different yoga instructors, and each of these relationships have been something that is kind of like the sustainability is kind of the core. They may not get rich, but they may severely build their business on it. So many people, such as Guildworks, who build the large tension fabric, have scaled that into doing this for cities and doing permanent installations, and those are the relationships that really work the best.
Yes.
And artists come and they get big. We get to harness all that energy, and very much like trying to resist the things that would make the event profitable, which I think we could talk about a little bit, which is how do we scale? Yeah. So all of these things we've talked about, part of the magic is not trying to make those things scale, not trying to cost reduce all of the gravy that if you looked at it from is that critical for the festival to survive? No. We had argument about, we have 40 of the best DJs, the KXP, the people that started that, to folks out of New York and LA and Portland, and we have this incredible DJ that you don't even really notice. They're just kind of playing music between the acts. Some people really get into it. Sometimes they're the center of the entertainment, like at the night in the Galaxy Art Yard.
Yeah.
It's like a huge dance party, and they this is like something that on paper you could just have an iPod plugged in and would no one care. And one of the things we've really found is no, that human actually kind of plays with the crowd, and you don't really think about it psychologically, but taking it from the end of something that was started that ended, that you just had this huge emotional response to the beginning is something you're looking forward to, bridging that and kind of taking you on that journey across that is like very important psychologically as part of the kind of thread of the day. You don't really get out of rhythm. You just kind of like, wow, you're just, something else is happening and you're kind of okay with it. And there are many of those kind of choices that you would say, that just costs too much, let's just get rid of it.
Right.
And they all add up to this thing, right, that we've been talking about of
this amazing experience that just keeps going.
Yeah, there's actually a funny pop culture reference out there now. If you've been reading about Meow Wolf or these kind of experiential museums that are popping up in San Francisco or New York, and Meow Wolf was in the New York Times recently on that as somebody that has really tried to scale this idea that you come to a museum and it's an experience. It's like a storyline, and it's like you open up a dryer and there's a slide and you end up kind of exploring this story that turns into aliens and all these other things, but they're taking you from one installation to another. And we really are kind of that in a festival, but kind of constantly thinking about how to deepen, connect those little transitions. And we just have seen this kind of experiential thing as making that not scale and having the core mission of being passionate about it. Like, okay, this has to be the most awesome thing we can do, and we can go a little bit further, and not confusing that with this is how we're going to kind of become scalable. And so I've been alluding around that. The big idea we had about 10 years ago was like, well, why don't we just take all of these stories and communities and we build original content, and that would scale like that. We could scale that to millions of people, and we were way too early, and we had no money to make that happen. So we had lots of attempts of kind of bringing in people, and over time failing miserably, getting better, and then all of a sudden becoming very competent. And now, like on the festival side, we have like 700 people just on our video crew, just out of the festival side. That's and the whole thing is like a giant film set. You don't ever think of it because it's all integrated and and the film kind of makes it better in live because we can see everything we're doing, and little things that bug us on the film really bug us in live performance too, but you never thought about it.
Right.
Film is just a lot less forgiving.
Yeah.
And
when you're in the moment, you overlook those things, you miss them, but then when you're going back and reviewing it, it's like, wait, what was that?
Yeah, like just separation from the audience to the artist. Just littlest things make it a big difference. But the content business for us has been this idea that, hey, let's take this music, this food, this design, this art, this spoken word. We have Ian Bremmer coming on comedy. I don't know if you're a comedy fan, but Ian Bremmer,
big fan.
Do you know Ian Bremmer? He sold 2 nights out at the Rev Hall. He's probably Oregon's biggest comic star.
No, it's amazing watching again. That local touch. They go into that national thing, but they come back.
Yeah,
that's the fun thing.
He wanted to play.
Yeah.
So like he has no business being at Pickathon because he's already well beyond that. But we're gonna have an incredibly serious comedy show, and
that sounds like an oxymoron, but
yes, that's true. But all of these ideas that we kind of build these original shorts on our YouTube channel. It's where we've been doing a lot, and we partnered with Travel Portland, and sometimes doing specific things that are longer pieces that could end up like 20-30 minutes versus these 6 to 10 minute type pieces. Those actually, now we're in discussions with original series where we take something like curation, and we build like a real 8 to 10 episode show that we could pitch on Netflix. So, or on, HBO or on Amazon. And so
this is so cool.
That is where we're headed, is like we're taking those stories, like the tree line story we talked about, and trying to create what is kind of a docu-series, what is kind of like an unscripted reality, but it isn't a forced thing. These are like real communities. And what is so awesome about it is that the stories, the arcs, the people, what we, they're less about Pickathon. Pickathon's in a character. They're more about these communities and what they're doing.
Right.
And in the case of curation, it's this idea of these two people with a lot of things on the line in their worlds. They got a lot at stake, and their collaboration. So it's like part chef's table, part iconoclast, and it turns into this real thing that they actually do. And so we're trying to be authentic too, so that it doesn't feel like we're creating something that, they're on an island and they have to like, we think that there's a huge space for these real kind of stories about the region, about the people here, because Portland is full of collaborators. This whole
that's definitely true. Yeah,
this region is really unique in the way that people can kind of be open to things and not just be in their corner, just fighting everyone else that's not in their corner, right?
Well, if you could sum it all up and put a bow on it, it would be, looking different at the festival experience. The traditional festival, it's like, how much money can we make doing X?
Yeah.
And with Pickathon, it's not how much money can we make, it's what kind of experience can we create. And when you change the parameters of what defines success to not be how much money, but what kind of experience can we create, how can we make people happy, you're actually more successful, because what festival is going through all the things that you are doing and is expanding beyond the festival to these new channels and whatnot. So when you turn that all on its head and redefine success, the traditional success can be found as well, and it's even larger.
Oh yeah, and we more sustainable.
Yeah.
And it's celebrating all of those collaborations. I mean, it is an incredibly local manifestation of all of what's going on in the Mount Hood territories and in Oregon and nationally, internationally. There are people that are contributing to that too. But that's what's so great. You couldn't, if somebody gave you a giant pile of money and said, and people have talked to us all the time about this, let's do 20 different Pickathons. The thing I would say to them is like, it's not like that. You don't even know who the people you would collaborate with. You don't. Yeah. We're not just like plopping down something. Pendarvis Farm is so accustomed to being in the Mount Hood territories with a view of Mount Hood and these spaces that we were given, that we could create something from that in Happy Valley, which is a whole nother big thing. Is most of our our success has really been kind of really developing those collaborations and comes out of the locals, the scene.
Yeah.
One other thing that's just happening Pickathon is, are we going to be able to survive? Because Happy Valley has
that town's growing tremendously.
Absolutely. Our parking lot is just, slated for massive development. So there is on paper, where we aren't going to be there forever. In reality, there's quite a big movement from the city, from the developers, from maybe even Metro, and looking at the Pendarvises and looking at that area, trying to create a walkable arts district down on 172nd. There's a lot of great visionary kind of discussions that have happened because this isn't something that the community hates, right? This is actually something that they're rallying to preserve because it really reflects, and it's a great trade-off. Like, very few folks, but there are a couple folks that are annoyed that they have to put up with music till late night for a couple weekends or a weekend of the year. But in general, having that as this beautiful space that the whole community can see and is not just mowed down with houses is just a wonderful trade-off. And so we cross our fingers. These next couple of years will be huge in that actually happening too.
I didn't want to be too self-serving to bring this up, but you did bring it up, off air. Yeah, so I can not take all the blame on this, but all the collaborations, everything that came together, our organization here, Oregon's Mount Hood Territory, does have to claim a small part of credit for that because we were able to help get this off the ground.
In our most kind of vulnerable state when we were literally coming out of that everyone's working for free to we had to go a little bit more into the semi-amateur kind of world was an incredibly hard and I think at that time was almost half of our funding. Like it was where we applied for a grant with Mount Hood Territories, and for 3 years they kind of phased a series of grants to kind of help us get to that next level. And wow, without that, I don't know. We have no clue how we would have navigated that kind of transition for ourselves. And that was huge. That was why we are still here. And I really hope there's other good success stories. You know, although everything we've talked about, it's kind of a miracle where we pulled it off.
You're a monumental success story.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely success stories, but I don't know if anything else can top what you guys have done. And you know, the fact that we're a part of that is a success story that we tell internally, because seeing an event that has started off with that funding like it's meant to, and then grown beyond it to the point, thanks, but we're good. You know, that's the whole point. And it's like watching a child grow up and move on and be successful.
That's how you write how you want it to be. Right?
Exactly.
That's what it's supposed to be.
That's
yes.
exactly
right.
Yeah. And then there's reality most of the time.
No,
reality. No, it is a hard world doing events, as we've been talking about, and trying to do them in ways that are special.
Yeah.
Well, I gotta say, you have, just to wrap that up, you have made it incredibly special, because earlier in this episode you talked about the psychology of going from one stage to there's a gap and then another stage, and how do you keep that, and so it's worked on me, because I did not even realize about, obviously I'm dancing to the DJ music, but I didn't realize you were carrying me from one stage to the next. So you've done a great job.
Yeah. You don't
The best kind of magic is the kind you don't see.
Right.
You just,
Right.
And it'll be even more magic. I will also say probably every year I always think it's probably our best lineup. This is definitely our best lineup. I mean, all the way down to the smallest. I'll give you a tip. Lauren Moreau is a country artist that you should listen to, who's going to be amazing, and she's completely unknown right now.
for now.
I'll make her popular just with sheer luck. No.
Well, just to wrap it up, give us the just for anybody who's listening doesn't know the dates and location, all that stuff, where to find you guys online and get information.
We are always the first Saturday in August, so we'll be Thursday the 1st through the 4th, which is, the 1st is a big deal because it's Jerry Garcia's birthday. These are things, I'm not a big dead hand, but these are things I've learned. It's Jerry Garcia's birthday, and so they're very excited about that set on Thursday on the main stage, and then they're going to play 3 hours in the woods. They're excited about. The website's www.pickathon.com. You can go to youtube.com/pickathon to see a lot of our content that we've been talking about. Everything you need is probably in one of those two spaces, and the kids under 12 are free. Weekend tickets are $320. You can buy tickets from $135 to $150 for the day. I will say that everyone that comes for the day always comes for the weekend the next time they come. So
they wish they had done the larger experience.
So you get to decide. But however you decide to do it, should be good. Curation will probably go on sale here within the next week. We're going to put all those tickets up, and they go very fast.
So keep checking the website.
Well, and I would say you have a really good Instagram account, too, because you guys have content going all year round for a 4-day festival.
All year.
And I love checking out your guys' posts on Instagram. So they're at Pickathon on Instagram, too.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Everywhere on social media, Pickathon.
Yeah.
So you think you're done, but you're not. We do this with every guest. And fortunately, none of our guests have listened to the show beforehand, so we can surprise them with this.
Well, we're fairly new.
Yeah, well, that's true. But we like to find another way to get to know our guests a little bit better and find out what's behind them. So we play a little game of Would You Rather? Speaking of curation earlier, Molly goes out and curates 5 Would You Rather questions, kind of tailored to each guest, just to kind of learn a little bit more about them, and then maybe we can make fun of you later when you're not here. I'm kidding. We do it right here with you. So without further ado, Molly, Would You Rather?
Okay, so I had to start the first question off related to music.
Yep.
So, would you rather have a song of your choice play repeatedly 24 hours a day for a year,
Oh, man.
or have songs you have no control over play for 24 hours a day for a year?
Songs I have no control over.
So it's either one or just a random mix.
Absolutely
Yeah,
random
I knew
mix.
it.
No brainer. No brainer.
No brainer.
I can probably go most places, so I would be pretty okay with that.
Yes. I knew the answer. Okay. So there's 5. So number 2, would you rather be able to talk to either land animals, animals that can fly, or animals that live underwater?
Did I mention these are really random?
I like land animals mainly because I'd love to talk to our cats
Yes.
and our dogs. And they need to be talked to. I need to know what's going on for them.
And the sea animals, everybody makes fun of Aquaman, so we're not going to go there.
I'm not from my wife's from Florida, so she might actually say, but she may also say land animals just because they're been so part of my life. Dogs and cats.
Gosh, with you. We both have dogs. He and his family have dog. My guy and I, we have dog. We have 2 labs, and I'm same. He talks all the time about how I take care of every need they could possibly have, and I'm like, they probably have more needs if I could just hear what they wanted to say. And
yes.
So I'm with you.
Well, the ironic thing of that is you could be able to talk to your cats, but they wouldn't answer back anyway, even if they could.
One of ours would. The other one would just look at deer in the headlights at all times.
Just be like a teenager and just ignore you and move on.
Yes.
Okay. Would you rather have all the traffic lights that you approach be green or never have to stand in a line ever again?
Ooh.
Wow.
I would say green only because I kind of like just meeting people. So lines don't bug me all the time. Like they don't bug me.
I think that's the first positive thing I've ever heard anyone say about a line.
I know.
That's awesome.
This dude's like the ultimate optimist.
He gets the bright side of it.
I have been labeled the ultimate optimist. So, yes.
Awesome. Wait, what? Be in our title or something. But.
Yeah, right?
Okay. Would you rather spend the rest of your life living on a sailboat as your house or an RV as your house?
That is easy. Definitely an RV because I am seasick captain. When I get on a boat, I can.
Oh no.
I probably would get over it like after a week. But
Sure.
It'd be an awful week.
It'd be an awful week.
Right.
And plus, remember, he's talking to the land animals, so the sailboat wouldn't really
Yes.
work.
Yes, and yeah, that's easy.
and camper life is fun.
And I love the mountains. I can't really get there on a boat.
Of course, he loves the mountains. Heck yeah. All right, last question. Would you rather travel the world for a year on a shoestring budget or stay in only one country for a year but live in luxury?
I think I know this one.
Shoestring budget, travel the world.
Called it.
It's all about, are you happy? I have this discussion with lots of people. Like, as you get a little bit older, you're like, okay, what's it all about? And you're just trying to figure out how to make it be happy. I would definitely be more happy kind of wandering like that.
Yeah, for sure.
See, again,
See?
redefining success, redefining happiness.
All the things.
That's why we do this show.
All the things.
You learn so much.
Zale, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it because,
it was a pleasure.
Again, watching Pickathon over the years become what it has been exciting, and hearing that the plans are continuing to go on for the future of what you guys want to do and continue to innovate. It's exciting to see, and I can't wait for the future.
We are excited too. Thank you for having me.
Yes.
Thank you for listening to Territory Tales. We'll talk to you again next time.